Are you a religious person?
Yes,
Why?
because I go to Mass weekly and I practice my faith.
What is something you do daily that you consider religious?
I pray every night.
What do you think it means to be a religious person?
It means someone who's like connected to God and that they practice their faith and they just have a strong belief in the faith.
What would you say is your religion?
Catholic.
And how or why do you think God impacts your life?
He impacts my life because I know I have a purpose for being here and I know that he's like an example of how I'd like to be and stuff.
What's an experience you went through that made you closer or farther from God?
Confirmation made me closer to God.
Thank you.
Would you say you're a religious person?
Yes, I'm pretty religious
Why?
because I go to Mass, I go to a Catholic school, and I pray every night.
What is something you do daily that you consider religious?
I pray at school every day and before I go to sleep.
What do you think it means to be religious?
Good question. To be religious means to believe in someone higher than yourself.
What's your religion?
I'm a firm believer in Catholicism.
Why do you think God impacts your life?
I mean, God impacts my life in several ways. He can bring me up when I'm down, and through using other people and objects.
Experience you went through that made you closer or further from God?
Freshman year, I almost lost my friend Kathy here, and God brought me closer back to her sophomore year.
Yeah.
Here we are, besties.
Would you say you're a religious person?
Yes.
What is something you do daily that you consider religious?
Every day at school I pray in the morning and before lunch and after school.
What do you think it means to be religious?
I think when you're religious you should respect God and pray to Him every night.
What is your religion?
Catholic.
How or why do you think God impacts your life?
Because when I'm sad sometimes, I always pray to Him and I'd be happy.
What's an experience you went through that made you closer or farther from God?
When I had a huge science test, the night of I prayed to God if I could get a good grade, and the next day I took the test and I got a really good grade.
This quote relates to our interviews because each person is unique and different, and each person said something very similar about them loving God and praying to God the same way. Even though they're all different people, they're the same in the church. This quote relates to our interviews because a church, what that means is a community of people that all pray, that come together for God. And in our interviews, they all showed how they needed to pray when they were down, or how they just wanted to pray to God every day for different reasons.
Three things I learned from the interviews that I watched are that 1, everyone is proud of the religion that they take part in. 2, each person answered the questions differently from the other people that we interviewed. And lastly, they all have an experience that made them closer to God. Some similarities I noticed are that the people that we interviewed all go to a Catholic school. And they all went through an experience that didn't make them farther, but made them closer to God. A difference that I noticed was that everyone had a different answer to why God impacts their life. The first interview surprised me the most because she was the one who had the most detailed answers to the questions, which stood out more?
3 things I noticed was people connect with God differently. Like some people said that they liked to pray, and other people said that going to mass made them feel closer with God, which I thought was interesting because, like, I don't know, I feel close with God when I like see a sign of like hope when I'm like having a bad day or something. And I also noticed that going to Catholic school, we have a lot of opportunities to pray to God and get closer with Him. A lot of public schools, you really don't. Like, you don't even talk about God. And I think how younger people look up to God is interesting because, like, kids are more, not naive, but, like, oblivious to all the bad things that happen in the world. And when you're older and you, like, recognize those things, like, it's hard to think that, like, there's a God among, like, all the evil things that people do. And I think when you get older, you lose sight of that. And I think kids are more hopeful, which is, like, always good. And a difference I saw was, again, like, people, like, get closer to God in different ways, praying or going to mass. And some similarities was just, like, everyone said that they, like, pray every day because we go to a Catholic school. And something that was interesting that I noticed was one of the juniors said that when she had her communion that she felt closer with God. And I thought it was interesting because when I had my bat mitzvah, I felt closer with God. So I thought it was, like, something similar, but in, like, different ways that, like, made us, I don't know.
3 things that I learned from the interviews were that, number 1, everybody has different opinions about the church. Number 2, that some people think that it's necessary to go to church. And number 3, that you can communicate on all different, or connect on all different levels with God. Some similarities and differences that I saw were that everybody's religion was Catholic, and everybody prays at least twice a day. And then, but a difference is that one person that we interviewed, they had different reasons for praying. And something that I was surprised by was that Adrian prays every day.
Things that I've learned from the interviews. 1, prayer and practicing faith is important in what being religious means. 2, even though they were all in different age groups, they answered the questions in similar ways. 3, it doesn't matter what age you are, your view on religion can be similar, different, or stronger than someone older than you. Similarities and differences. Every person that was interviewed became closer to God and not further away. Some answers were more in depth than others when it came to what religious meant. Every interviewee was Catholic, and God impacted their lives in all different ways. The interview that had surprised me the most was the last one. Although she was young, she still had a strong belief in God, and her answers were in depth and heartfelt. All her answers seemed really meaningful and like she meant every single one.
Some things I learned while doing this project were that, considering we interviewed like everyone and they were all Catholic, they all had a different way in which they viewed God and practiced His teachings. Another thing that I learned was that praying is really important and it plays a big role in every religion, not just like ours. And the last thing I learned was that God impacts us all in different ways. So the people we interviewed were similar because they all like prayed often and they're all Catholic, but they're different because, in my opinion, they had different mindsets on the way that they answered the questions. And what surprised me the most was when we asked Adrian how God had impacted him, and he said it was about me.